Hi and welcome. This is my second video for the Shared World, my Humanities in Everyday Life project. I have to say something funny. I was trying to get myself ready for this video and I was like messing with my hair and my sweater and stuff, and I was like, what is this glint in my eye? I have like this green glint, and I was like closing my computer and like looking around. It's my phone. So I was just there and I have to have my glasses on. So there's that, the green glint. I want to say thank you. I've gotten such a good outpouring of response for this project, and your personal support means so much to me. This project means so much to me. I'm just really grateful and not overwhelmed, but like empowered and excited. I feel a lot of really motivating energy here, and it's really helpful for me because, you know, over the past, few years, I have, just had a very busy life. I mean, like having a very engaged, active little boy, and with us, my family moving all over the place, and us going through seminary, and like, me working to make sure that we had food to eat. Like, I didn't really get a lot of time to pursue things that were important to me in terms of like my own personal scholarship. A lot of my writing stuff kind of, it didn't go dormant, but I could only work on it in little bits and pieces, and my reading, I could only work on it in little bits and pieces. And it's just really nice to be in a space where I can explore things more freely, and where I have the freedom to do that and the time to do that, and that you're all excited about it. So I'm really grateful, and hope that you keep watching these and offering me input and responses, and that just keeps growing. I'm really excited. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I'm still kind of working on a direction for things. Like, I don't have like, here's a calendar of videos of things I'm going to explore. Like, it's still pretty organic. So if you have suggestions for things, like, that you're, sorry, I'm trying to avoid this giant light. If you know that, like, you're teaching a class and you're going to be exploring some particular humanities theme and you would like to work on it together, I would love to do that. If you have questions about a particular poem that you're like, I have always seen this. I had a professor show me this in class and I just have no idea what it is still. If there's anything that comes to mind that you feel like you would like me to interact with and present here, I would really love that, because part of the goal of this project is really to talk about the humanities in everyday life and how it is that we interact with texts and music and art and history and philosophy at our kind of like everyday level of interaction. I think a lot of people think about the humanities as being only something that happens in a university setting. They think it happens in a professor's office. They think, it happens in, some crinkly library in England, when really, like, it happens there, and it's important for it to happen in those spaces because scholarship is immensely important, but it also happens in our conversations, and it happens with our interactions with all sorts of cultural artifacts and items. So if you see something and you think that it would be something interesting for me to look at, or that I'd be interested in it, I would really love to see it. So feel free to contact me. I have my email address on my YouTube channel. It's thesharedworld19@gmail. I have my Facebook page, which is probably like the primary thing I'm going to be working with. I'm trying to use Twitter. I used Twitter like forever ago, and it just can kind of be a cesspool. So in this day and age, I do have an account on there, but it's really kind of a place for me to collect ideas, and organizations are posting things about their humanities work all the time, and so that'd be kind of a primary place for that. But I'm also looking at starting an Instagram page too, so we'll just see how it goes. And if you have suggestions for things, like I said, I would really love it. Something really interesting, this past weekend was, it was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and where I live here in Houston, that was like a gigantic deal because, this is like NASA Central. There are parks downtown that have commemorative moon landing, like, tiles where, like, it looks like Buzz Aldrin's foot and Neil Armstrong's foot, and, like, on the lunar surface. And there are all sorts of really great things on PBS about, everything that went into the moon landing. And if you haven't checked out my Facebook page, I have a really wonderful article from The Atlantic about how the New York Times, when they were figuring out, like, okay, how do we report on, like, one of the biggest events in human history, they had like a day to put it together, and they really realized, like, we need some poetry. We need some poetry to really bring this event and its magnitude to the people. And so if you check out The Shared World on Facebook, you see that article, and it's just a really, really powerful, lovely poem. One thing I wanted to mention that I think will give us some direction as I'm working on this is that I have 2 books that I'm reading that I think will kind of shape some interactions I'll have on this channel and answer some questions that I have about the humanities in everyday life, and I wanted to show them to you. One book is this is a book by Michael Levenson. This is like $20 on Amazon. It's from Oxford Press. Michael Levenson is the William B. Christian Professor of English at the University of Virginia, and he wrote this book called The Humanities in Everyday Life, and it's just this dense little book about what he believes to be a really important bridge between what he calls ordinary humanists, people who are just like ordinary practitioners of the humanities, and the scholarly world of humanities. So I wanted to just kind of read the back of the book to you, because I just started reading this tonight, and I think it's going to really hit a lot of interesting angles for me. But he says, "We think of the humanities as a cluster of specialized academic activities, and so they are. But they also belong to the ordinary world, the world where students and faculty make connections and careers, where they eat and drink and fret, where they move through new buildings and old seminar rooms. In the humanities in everyday life, Michael Levenson places the academic humanities within this field of daily life, where abstract thought stands alongside routine needs. The humanities also live outside the university in activities that have been overlooked or undervalued, in book clubs, in historical reenactments, which my in-laws will love because they're into historical reenactment, and some of my friends too, in visits to museums and libraries and private collections, in contributions to Wikipedia, which I love Wikipedia, and in amateur genealogy. These activities belong to the humanities quite as much as research published in specialty journals, probing distinctions between professionals and amateurs, and asking what constitutes expertise, which Levenson does a really interesting job in the intro about talking about how the idea of the expert is something that's really contested in our time, and we saw that, we've seen that in the past 10 years politically, people are really anti-expert, and they want somebody who's more, who positions themselves as more as like an everyday kind of person, and you see that, or Levenson claims that like you see that in elections in America and elections in Britain and in other places. So that's interesting. The humanities in everyday life addresses both the university and the world beyond, to see where they meet and fail to meet, and to argue that the walls between them should lower. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see what it is that he says about those walls lowering, and how we are already engaged in the work of the humanities in just our daily life, and what that looks like for people. So I think it'll be really interesting. I think it'll pose some questions. I'm excited to kind of see how that turns out. And then the next book I'm reading, which will probably take me a little bit, but this is called Reader Come Home, The Reading Brain in a Digital World, and it's by a writer named Marianne Wolf, who was famous for her book Proust and the Squid, which came out like 10-15 years ago, maybe longer. I didn't read that one, but it was just a really famous book about reading and about a history of reading, and this is kind of a follow-up to that. So something that's really obviously interesting in here is that she's examining what digital reading looks like for us, and what deep reading looks like in a time where we are constantly surrounded by digital text. And so obviously that's a really intriguing humanities question, and in just some of my preliminary humanities searches for books, this came up. So I'm excited about the Levenson book, I'm excited about the Wolf book, and I'm excited to hear from all of you about what it is that you would like to explore. I'll probably be putting out some polls and some questions and some interactive things in the coming weeks about things that I see interacting with Levenson's book. I'm also going to post a Canva quote. I don't know if you all know what Canva is, but it's this really great website where you can, they have all these like different stock backgrounds where you can create posters that you can post in social media and lots of other different things. So I'll be using that for some stuff if you're looking for like some interesting quotes to just look at. So that's where we are now. I did want to end us with a poem. I think this is something that I'll continue to do here, because I think that, one of the the important things about humanities in everyday life is recognizing humanities in public life. And like, no, this is my living room. I'm not like at a podium in like a large public space, but poetry, the act of reading poetry out loud is something that is both really public and really personal. So I just think that's important to do. And the poem I wanted to read today is a poem that I just shared with a friend of mine whose birthday is this week. This time in July is like a big celebratory time, you know, lots of weddings, lots of returns home, lots of holiday, you know, birthday parties. Like we have my wedding anniversary is this week, my son's birthday is this week, you know, it's just kind of like a celebratory time. And what I think Marie Howe's poem, What the Living Do, does here is that it reminds us of what it means to cherish our existence and what it means in the regular moment to look upon ourselves as in aspects of ourselves as things to cherish and to hold dear, especially if, you know, whether we're in a celebratory time or a hard time or a burden time, where it's easy to either have moments gloss over us or to just feel really weighed down. We don't necessarily have our eyes open to cherish our life. And this poem, What the Living Do, is really about that. So I'm going to read that, and then we'll be done, okay? Another 1 a.m. video for you all. So this is What the Living Do by Marie Howe. Johnny, the kitchen sink has been clogged for days. Some utensil probably fell down there. And the Drano won't work but smells dangerous. And the crusty dishes have piled up, waiting for the plumber I still haven't called. This is the everyday we spoke of. It's winter again. The sky is a deep, headstrong blue, and the sunlight pours through the open living room windows because the heat's on too high in here and I can't turn it off. For weeks now, driving or dropping a bag of groceries in the street, the bag breaking, I've been thinking, this is what the living do. And yesterday, hurrying along those wobbly bricks in the Cambridge sidewalk, spilling my coffee down my wrist and sleeve, I thought it again and again later when buying a hairbrush. This is it. Parking, slamming the car door shut in the cold. What you called that yearning, what you finally gave up. We want the spring to come and the winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more and then more of it. But there are moments walking when I catch a glimpse of myself in the window glass, say, the window of the corner video store, and I'm gripped by a cherishing so deep for my own blowing hair, chapped face, and unbuttoned coat that I am speechless. I am living. I remember you. So in the heat that we're all experiencing, it might have been kind of strange to hear a winter poem, but I think that there's so much in this poem about looking up and seeing ourselves and feeling the dregs of whatever behind us, and then just having this moment of clarity. And I really hope that's what this page is for you, and I hope that you are able to interact with it in a way that brings you light and understanding and some clarity. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.